Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome for the October 2020 Women of MENA in Technology, the Montreal chapter's virtual event. We're very happy to have all you guys, and I still see people kind of coming in. We have a great panel planned today. My name is Sahar Ansari. I'm one of the 4 team members for the Montreal chapter of Women of MENA in Technology. The other 3 members are Tara Ahavon, Bahar Partov, and Soodeh Farokhi, who's on the panel today as well. Basically, Women of MENA in Technology is a not-for-profit that started in California over 5 years ago. It's a not-for-profit that has now grown to over 14 global cities. The mission of this not-for-profit is really to empower and support women of Middle Eastern and North African descent that are in the tech community. And one of the ways we do that is by planning and organizing events like today, where we bring forth and bring together really female tech leaders that speak on interesting topics and allow us to all connect and network in different ways. So this is actually our last event of 2020. But please be on the lookout. We're going to continue to have these types of events and different types of ways to come together through our social media and other. So without further ado, today's panel is on the topic of AI and practical applications, and a discussion around the lessons learned. And I will pass it on to Naomi Goldapple, who is a VP at Alayacare, who will be the moderator for today, along with the other panelists who will present themselves shortly. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Very happy to be here. And my name is Naomi, and I run the R&D arm of Alayacare, which is called AlayaLabs, and very, very excited to be here. There's been a lot of hype over the past few years, probably the past 4 or 5 years, about artificial intelligence. And today, what is really exciting is to hear from 3 very esteemed panelists who are actually applying artificial intelligence. We're going to hear from them in the trenches, what it's like to actually put these technologies into operation, and some lessons learned. And it'll be really interesting to hear the 3 different perspectives from their different backgrounds. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Bahar Sateli. Actually, you can all put your cameras and videos on so that everybody can see you. There we go. Here's our esteemed panelists. So we'll just do a quick intro of each panelist, and then we can get into some exciting conversation. And we're going to do that for about half an hour. And after we do that, we will there'll be a Q&A. So please feel free to add any questions into the chat, and we'll be very happy to field those after the panel discussion. So I'd like to introduce Bahar Sateli. So Bahar Bahar comes to us from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and she's going to tell you more about that. But what is very exciting about Bahar, she is actually she was recognized as one of the top 30 influential women advancing AI in 2019. That's quite an honor. For a lot of her work done on responsible AI, and we're very looking forward to hearing more about that. So please tell us a bit more about yourself, Bahar.
Thank you, Naomi. My name is Bahar Sateli. I'm currently a manager in advanced analytics and AI practices at PwC based out of Montreal. Before my PwC and consulting life, I was also an entrepreneur. After I finished my PhD in computer science from Concordia University, I also wanted to try the startup life. I incorporated my own startup about 5 years ago now. The aim was to use AI to help researchers and scientists who rely on a lot of reading and writing on a daily basis. The idea was that a lot of these tasks can be actually outsourced to a computer program that uses AI to understand text. So lots of advanced techniques from natural language processing, processing large corpora of scientific article to really get the gist of and the point of each article and try to give it to the scientist who doesn't want to spend a lot of time reading those material, but actually wants to use the knowledge that was contained in them. After that, I had a bit of an epiphany while I was working at the startup and putting that tech to practice. And I understood that just the technical excellence and creating a really high and advanced product is not exactly a business or a sustainable business, because there are lots of other aspects of it that we weren't really fluent in, and we struggled for a long time. And that made me think that I need more experience in the management side of things and not just on the technical excellence. And I also didn't want to do an MBA all over again after being in school for too long, doing a master's and PhD. And I found that tech consulting, especially at the Big Four firm like PwC, would be an ample environment for me to be and basically learn on the go. And since I joined, I kind of have two hats at PwC. My one hat is always what I've always been. I've always been a developer, a computer scientist. I take care of everything from inception of a project all the way to development and deploying it on either on our side or our client premises. My other hat, and perhaps what put me on the map for that top 30 list, is I also developed kind of a passion about the human side of AI, and really what we're developing is actually design centered around human agency and human needs. And we know that there is a race to have the best AI and the most accurate AI and really go to market with it fast. But there's a lot that needs to be considered, a lot around ethics of it. A lot of questions around whether what you're building is actually beneficial for the environment, for the workforce, for human. And I started asking the tough questions. I put a lot of thought leadership and white papers out under the PwC brand. And I think that put me on the radar for this list. It's an honor to be on it.
Awesome. Well, we're very excited to have you here, Bahar. So, scientist, entrepreneur, influencer, and now consultant. So we're very, very happy for you to join us today. Okay, now let's move on to Soodeh. So Soodeh Farokhi, also recognized as the finalist of 2020 RBC Canadian Women Entrepreneur Awards in the innovation category. So very, very impressive indeed. And also the founder of C2RO. So very excited to hear about your background and what you're doing today.
Thank you so much, Naomi. And hi, everyone. Very happy and excited to be part of the panel today. I'm Soodeh Farokhi, the founder and chief technology officer of C2RO. It's an AI enterprise software as a service company based in Montreal. We are called the Google Analytics of the physical space, leveraging the existing surveillance cameras. And we use the cameras for analyzing the behavior and demographic of people using computer vision and AI. I launched the company in 2016 here in Montreal, and we have raised over $6 million so far, equity and non-equity money, and are around 15 people. And I'm very excited to work with all of them, smart people, and I lead the strategic relationships right now of the company, working with SAP, Telefonica, Dahua, and other players. I started my career in 2018 back in Iran as a software engineer in telecommunication and the web service domain. I launched my first company there, automating business processes as a service company. And then I decided to pursue my PhD. I moved to Europe, Vienna, beautiful Vienna. I did my PhD there in cloud applications. And I am a proud mom of a 2-year-old girl now, and very happy to be here today.
Excellent. Thank you, Soodeh. Very happy to have you as well, and to hear more about C2RO. Okay, and now we have Behnaz, who comes to us from Evado Labs, and also has a very, very exciting background, concentrating on supply chain and AI applications. comes from McKinsey and has a PhD, and looking forward to hearing more about your background and what you're up to today.
Thanks, Naomi. Good evening, everyone. Behnaz, Saboonchi here. Very excited to be part of the panel. Thanks, MENA, for the invitation, and thanks for everyone for showing up. Hopefully, we're going to have very exciting conversations tonight. So yes, I have been in the tech or AI startup scene in Montreal since 2018. Currently at Evado Labs, I'm part of the executive team leading the product management of the business team. What we do is that we develop tailor-made or bespoke solutions in supply chain empowered by AI. And what that means is a combination of a lot of mathematical techniques, but mainly what does the magic is the combination of machine learning on the predictive side of the house, and then, the decision-making sciences, which is more on the operations research. Before that, I also, like the other ladies here, I started my career in academia, did my PhD in operations research, which is exactly the decision sciences part I was talking about. And then at the end, again, the same ladies decided that academia wasn't the long-term plan for me. So I just jumped into the consulting world, a little bit in IT consulting, and then the majority of it was in strategy consulting at McKinsey. So at McKinsey, I did supply chain operations, manufacturing, procurement. So I've always been in that space, which gave me the edge when I joined the startup world or the tech startup world to use that edge and expertise to kind of take it to the next level in terms of focus on AI software development. So that's who I am, and happy to be part of this panel. Also, mom of 2 kids, 2 and 5. So like Soodeh, hopefully they're not going to jump into the presentation tonight. We'll see.
Okay, well, everyone will forgive us if our kids jump in.
Might happen. Just saying, might happen.
I have 3 running around, but they're a little older, so hopefully they know. Great. Well, listen, there's so much knowledge here, and there's so many things to talk about. But we'll get right into it. And Bahar, we'll start with you. So many different things to ask you because of all of your different aspects that you've experienced. But let's focus in on this responsible AI toolkit, which is very, very intriguing. So not only what exactly is a toolkit, but how does that relate to real applications of AI? Because our whole theme today is talking about the real and the concrete. So how does that actually work? Tell us about that.
Sure. So as you know, at PwC, we're a very large firm, and we also have very large clients. So we're talking about financial services, insurance companies, banks, logistics, retail. These are really, really big clients. That translates to having AI systems that when they go to production, they have large impacts on masses. The reason for coming up with this toolkit is now everybody, it's like the hype, right? About 5-10 years ago, everybody wanted big data. They didn't know what it was, but they wanted it. Now we have this wave of AI. Now everybody wants it. They heard that if you have just enough data, you just feed it into a model and you get some magical predictions. You don't really need to understand how those predictions come out. You just hire a data scientist. But those decisions will impact your workforce. They will impact your business processes. They will impact your end users. Now, imagine if you're a bank, as we had cases that want to decide about your credit worthiness or credit risk based on some transactions, some data that they have on you that may come from the bank, they may come from external resources, and they aggregate it. They're fed into a model and they translate into some kind of a score. Now, that is going to affect a lot of people, virtually anybody who's going to apply for a credit card application. What's important here is that model will learn from the data that you feed it. So if that data is what we call imbalanced, so it doesn't have many good examples of people who received a good or were good candidates for receiving a credit card versus people who did not, you have to make sure that the model is what we call it is not biased towards a certain population. So if you just happen to give data sets on white male from certain addresses or certain income levels to the model will learn that there is a high probability that if I get another candidate who is a white male from a certain zip code, it's a good case. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it an approve, versus somebody else who's actually worthy of getting a credit card, but because of their gender, or their ethnicity, or their level of income, or perhaps their zip code of where they live, which is an implicit indication of their income, they're not going to get that. So the model or the developer are not necessarily racist or sexist, or they want to divide the society. It's just that they have to be aware of the implications of what data they use or they don't use. Now, some of these are the implication or the criticality is that somebody doesn't get a credit card, but if you deploy that AI on a governmental level, that affects the citizens, affects us as a nation, or affects a person's application who's seeking asylum in this country. Now, some of those decisions are irreversible, or they really, really impact people's lives. The problem is that people on the C-suite level, the executives, they don't necessarily have a PhD in AI. They understand risks, but they don't understand how that translates into small, basically the details of the processes that a data scientist is working on. So what we've done at PwC is that we started hashing out what kinds of risks are possible or could be associated with AI when they go into production and affect a lot of people. And we kind of thought, okay, now that we have these risks, what are the things that we can do to mitigate or to raise a flag early in the process so they don't actually go into production, create massive financial or reputational risk, and then for the organization only to shut it down after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. That's what we do as part of educating or upskilling our clients in what are the risks of AI and what actually translates into an ethical, responsible approach towards development of them and then putting them to use. Taking into considerations concepts like fairness. So if your model is making a decision the right way, it has to make a decision about everyone. And if it's wrong, it has to be wrong about everyone. But also other things like if you're processing a lot of, well, basically if you're automating a lot of processes, you might effectively put some people out of jobs. So we really need to think about a just transition of work, control over the AI, and a lot of other things like privacy, security, interpreting what your model is doing. And only by having a really good governance and a control over these kind of risks that may pop up during an AI process, you can build an AI that you can trust and you can put it into production and basically sleep well at night if you're a C-level executive.
Yeah, that's thank you. That's very, very interesting. There's a lot to think about, clearly, right from data cleaning into to putting it into production. You mentioned about like the C-suite, that the C-suite should be educated. Does this go down to the actual, because it's not the C-suite that's going to be looking at these predictions and making a decision. This is probably, a mortgage clerk or a financial advisor who's actually looking at this. Do you go down to actually training to that level, the person who is actually interacting with the prediction?
It's one of the key pillars of this toolkit. So I would say a good chunk of the focus of this toolkit is what we call on explainability and interpretability of models, because to a lot of people, and when you actually really think about high-performing AI models and the deep learning area, a lot of these models are performing very, very well, but they're really difficult to explain. So you get some good decisions out of it, but if somebody asks you, like, what were the actual features that this model looked at to make this decision, a lot of times you can't do that. So if you think about the decisions that we're going to make and we're going to blindly trust an AI model, if you give this to any chief risk officer from any big organization, they're going to be like, no, I cannot sign off for this to go live, because if someone tomorrow walks into the bank, or if in the near future we're going to have an AI audit body from the government, if they walk into our bank and ask us how we're making decisions, we can't just say we don't know because the computer said so. So what we're doing actually is trying to equip those people, to the data scientists, all the way to process owners, middle managers who are going to rely on the predictions of an AI to be able to predict two things. Once they have to understand how the model works overall, so some sort of a holistic view of what features the model is really relying on to make a decision, and they have to make sure that those features are, for example, nothing about the health or personally identifiable information or protected attributes like religion, ethnicity, gender. So just to make sure that they're not making a biased model, but also be able to having a prediction in hand, be able to reverse engineer it to explain it to someone, right? A lot of cases, so if you are an applicant for a credit card and you constantly get rejected by the bank, at some point you're going to get fed up and go to the bank and say, explain to me what's wrong. Why am I not getting a credit card approved, right? At this point, this is what we actually help the businesses to try to kind of flesh it out and say, well, you didn't get a credit card approved because such and such feature for which you have such and such values are lower than the average of people. And if you were to get an approval on your application, here's what you should improve on: your score, your level of income, your number of delinquencies, and so on. But you will only get these information if you have an interpretable model. And this is what area that we're really working hard on it.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah, because the whole idea of a black box is frightening to people, and being able to explain it is that's where we need people like you to be able to help with that. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Bahar. Okay, let's switch focuses a bit. Soodeh, we will kind of put on our entrepreneurial hats, and when looking at C2RO, the Google Analytics of the physical space. So that's a pretty awesome tagline for your company. And reading a bit about C2RO, we see that you're able, you kind of embed yourselves in surveillance cameras and things like that to be able to actually use computer vision to interpret basically what's happening. Thinking about it, you're like, wow, that's an amazing technology, but there's so many use cases. How do you go about taking your innovation and trying to figure out what is the best application of this, and how do you approach the market that way?
That's a great question, because that's actually one of the lessons learned. If I return back and want to build another startup, I definitely consider the answer of this for myself. I think the story started that would be very interesting for the folks here, that I myself, I'm a technology savvy, and I was very obsessed by the technology stack. Like, this is the technology stack. This is the AI models that we are building. And back then, we actually started with a application product name Engage. That was a face recognition application. And we were applying that using the cameras of robots to give the authentication application use cases in facilities like hotels, restaurants, etc., so that, let's say, they recognize you, re-identify people coming. The AI model, we were making it accurate every day. We were gathering data sets, private data set for ourselves. We were focusing on a lot of aspects of the technology, how to make it real time, how to improve the performance here, and the technology stack was amazing. So it was very impressive. But when it comes to market feedback, I think back then, when I now look at that, right now, I can say that I was kind of not even hearing the market feedback, because the market was emerging, first of all, for robotics. And then we were saying, well, we are building this face recognition technology and application that is a software as a service, pretty affordable in terms of the software. But you know what? You need to buy this big robot first, like 10K, and then start using our awesome SaaS. So it was cool. Everybody was getting our first call. But then when it comes to, okay, are you willing to pay? They were saying, we're going to try it. Can you offer a 3-month free pilot, etc., etc.? As a founder, you would love it, because you are excited about the technology you want to see in real world, and you don't mind. Okay, so they are excited to use it. They're going to use it, and then they're going to pay later. And we did this more. So many customers were interested in a way of trying it. When we were saying, well, okay, that was the opportunity, that they had a robot already and they didn't know what to do with it. And then we were kind of offering the software. The lesson learned for me was that when I was hearing back then that the market is small, in robotics, I was looking at China, I was looking at Japan, and I was like looking at the numbers, and I was saying, no, it's not. You are not listening to me. I'm pitching it in the market. It's not. The accuracy is very good. The model is very perfect. And I was not hearing the investors even that they were saying that. Now, well, that was the another factor was the perception of customers. They were saying that, well, okay, face recognition, what should I do with our users when they are skeptical about the technology? And I was saying, well, you need to opt in, they need to opt in. In my view, I was hearing the market feedback in a very logical way. And it's not like this. You need to hear them, you need to feel the emotion of customers. Sorry. And you need to see if they are paying it. If they pay for your product, means that it can be a business afterwards. And then we realized that, wow, we built like a castle. Nobody can live in that castle because customers are not paying us. And then it came to all of the GDPR and data privacy concerns, and it comes to face recognition. And that's the story that we had a pivot towards what we are now calling the Google Analytics of physical space. So the lesson learned for me was that if you're building something, go very agile, get the market feedback very quickly, hear the market feedback, customer are kings, and you really need to listen to them. And then be honest with yourself. Is it going somewhere, or you need to do the pivot? If you need to do the pivot, do it fast.
Yeah.
Learn from the previous life and just do it fast.
I think that's very sage advice. It has to be delivering value, right? If it's not delivering value, exactly. It can be as sexy as you want, but nobody's going to pay for it. Exactly. One thing I was just reading about you in terms of pivoting or in terms of listening to the market is that because of COVID, because of the pandemic, you've now kind of focused on some use cases that are very specific for the pandemic. Do you want to just tell us very quickly?
That's exactly. That's interesting. This is actually the lesson learned we learned from our previous product, because right now we came to the lockdown. We are the Google Analytics of physical space, and the physical space was locked down everywhere. We are working with European companies, and we say, well, we are not just sitting and looking at the market to open. We say, well, we need to innovate. And we actually thought, okay, what would be the case after this lockdown? What these customers want from us? They don't want probably the demographic analysis with all of the face mask, and I'm going to get to that one later on. So they want the safety features, and then we call it safety package. We use our technology and we extend it to safety, such as we do the face mask analysis, we do the occupancy management of a building, again, using the existing camera, and we say how many people are in. If it's reached their capacity, we alert the owner. We do the social distancing analysis as well. And also we extend it to thermal screening, so that we understand if the person with an elevated temperature enter, we can also do the action that the owner wants us to do. So this is also, I think, the lesson we learn, and we just try to adapt to the new situation. We cannot just wait to see what will happen next, especially in startup.
That's that's amazing. That's definitely being able to pivot on your feet to all of a sudden, measure face mask wearing and distancing, and using heat maps to see if people have temperature. That's an interesting way to use your technology right on the fly to be able to stay afloat during these pandemics. Great, thank you so much, Soodeh. So now, Behnaz, very excited to talk to you. As one of the heads of Evado Labs, you're obviously exposed to so many different interesting use cases where the intersection of ML and operations research come into play. So I'm sure everybody would be very interested to hear some of the interesting use cases that you're working on right now. And a second part is really to understand when somebody would use sort of an outside consultant. When do I outsource my AI versus building it in-house? So it's kind of a two-part. One is if you can give us a little flavor of some of maybe one of your favorite projects you're on right now, and then tell us why somebody would outsource as opposed to trying to build this in-house.
Absolutely. Thanks, Naomi. So use cases I'm in the supply chain space. So I would say we pretty much do whatever you can do with AI in supply chain. So if I want to simplify and break down supply chain functions, you do anywhere from planning, making something, distributing it and selling it in a way, or selling and distributing, we can argue that. And we are pretty much present in all of it. Obviously, the aspect of predictive versus decision making can vary. The complexity can vary. So when you're in planning and forecasting functions, you do a lot of predictions, and then you have to hook it up with some sort of so what. Let's say I predict something, so I decide how much inventory I should have. So that's the decision making part. In the manufacturing, obviously, we do less of it. It's very IoT for us. IoT is just another source to get data. So we are not in the hardware business. We are agnostic where and how the data comes from. But we have some use cases that are more involved, and they have sensors, and sometimes we give advisory with respect to what do we need, and hence that informs how those hardware should be deployed, so to speak. I would say in the distribution, that's the bread and butter. That's classical supply chain. I myself am very present. And Naomi, I know that's an area that you used to lead at Elements, so logistics, distributions, operations, and optimization. So these are the good old supply chain use cases. And now they're even more powerful with the predictive add-ons to predict last-minute changes, and then you re-optimize quickly. So you have to up the game on both the optimization side and the predictive side. And I would say the selling side, that's borderline. You can argue, you can agree or disagree. Is it supply chain? Is it commercial? Anything revenue management, pricing optimization? It's interrelated, but I would say that would be the idea stretch end of supply chain. So in terms of interesting use cases, I have a ton of interesting use cases. Some of them continued, some of them stopped for various reasons, mainly because of lack of, I wouldn't say enough data, but the right data with the right granularity, because it's not just about the size and volume, obviously. So one use case that I can talk about specifically is my favorite because it happens to be a smaller sized client, which does not happen often. All of our clients are big and multinationals because of the CapEx investments, because of maturity, because of aspiration, vision, because of a lot of things. This specific client is kind of an outlier. One of our most successful projects at Evado Labs. It's a smaller sized company with a CEO who's a visionary. He loves these things and he invests, and their business are growing like never. So right now we have 2 or 3 projects with them. One of the projects that we kind of stopped. So I don't want to talk about all the things that went well, but one of the projects, I wouldn't say it didn't go well. It was just not conclusive. The reason was that it was a predictive model that was to get you a little bit of the persona, how important human beings are in this. So it's a company that's growing very fast. And in one of their functions, it was a lady, a very smart lady who's been doing this job for 15 hours. And since they were growing, they could not clone that lady. So they had to help her to be able to ingest more volume of work. So her job was she received client requests, and she had to predict what the status of their capacity would be when that request or order is going to hit, so she can accept, refuse, or delay. So that was it. So classical predictive ML, I got the science business case. It was there, obviously. Everyone wants to do that because, sometimes they overbooked, sometimes they're underbooked. You don't want any of that. So use case was there, check the box on business, check the box on science, and they checked the box on data. Like it was a relatively mature client. They had data, we checked the fields we needed, all good. So what happened was that when we did the proof of concept, so you had the features, so the model was learning, but the outcome didn't make sense based on the model was predicted historically. Let's say, to give you an example, you had XYZ values that said that that lady should have refused that order, but historical said she accepted, and the actual was that, yes, that order went through on time. So we couldn't accept what happened. So what we did is, obviously it's not working, right? Model is working, but it doesn't make sense. So when we got into the bottom of the things, we understood that even if the data said that, oh, we're not going to have capacity in 3 days, let's say it says there's no capacity on the boat, so you can't book any capacity for your container to leave. So that lady, she was very smart. She was well connected. She would call up people. She would do things. She would make things happen, and she would get the capacity. She would accept and just, fulfill the demand. So these are the things that were not in the data. I guess the aha and the lessons, especially for younger data scientists, and that happens especially in the ML space. They're right out of PhD program. They don't have much business experience. And it was a very aha moment, like for them, how important it is to understand the business, to talk to people, just go deep in the processes. So we stopped the project, obviously, because that phone calling and that relationship was not there. So we said, we need to stop the project at this point. Next step is the data strategy. Every time you make a decision, we need to know, what did you look at that informed your decision? Why did you make that decision, and what was the outcome? Unless you give me these, the model has nothing to learn on, so I can't help you. So that was a good example on two things: the importance of business and understanding the processes that are not in the data. And the second one, destigmatize the fact that sometimes the clients invest, they do proof of concept, and you just have to stop. And that's part of the game.
That's right. That's, the importance of good data, of course. And sometimes you just have to stop it and say, we stop, go back, collect data for the next 6 months, and then we'll try again. That's very, very important to remember. I imagine you have to think about that all the time with every new client. So we're actually, each one of you is very, it's very fascinating, each one of you. And unfortunately, we're already at the end of our time for questions, but I would like to kind of wrap up with one more question before we head it over to the Q&A. So maybe just to ask each of you, we'll just go, give you a quick answer for each of you. In terms of maybe just from what you've seen, what are the new directions for applied AI? Like, what are you seeing in your world that you're excited about for the next couple of years? So Bahar, do you want to just give us some taste of the future that you're excited about?
Yes, and I would say that would be a merge of two different techniques. One thing is that we have to be able to crawl, walk, then run. Mm-hmm. Any organization that just wants to start running most likely will fail, and it will be a very, very expensive fail, not just financially, but think about other things such as reputational risks, right? We had an infamous case with Microsoft where the chatbot was released on Twitter. It was supposed to have some kind of a good dialogue with people, but it had a closed feedback loop where the chatbot learned from conversations, and unfortunately it hung up with the wrong crowd, so the chatbot quickly turned into a very profanity full conversation, right? So a lot of these cases is where you really don't put a lot of things through what is going to happen when that AI is put into production with a lot of decision-making powers. And a lot of our clients kind of understand that. So they're really just comfortable at the moment with robotic process automation, where we take repetitive processes at work, we hash them out into something that can be scripted. And then we're slowly introducing the concept of what we call the digital worker. So these are the bots that work alongside the human at work, and they tend to facilitate or do a lot of cost saving and time saving in processes. What we're seeing, though, is now that a lot of those processes rely on some cognitive abilities. So you might have a bot that can download stuff from emails, for example, for accounts receivable or accounts payable, but the bot actually needs to start reading those invoices. And that's some cognitive ability that RPA can do. So what we're doing is like we're slowly introducing a lot of AI in terms of image recognition, natural language processing, combining the techniques from robotic process automation with AI and what we effectively called intelligent automation. And that is gaining a lot of momentum with our large scale clients.
Oh, I'm sure that represents huge cost savings and a bit, maybe opportunity for more meaningful work for some of the repetitive tasks that happen. Yeah, I'm excited about that too. That sounds very exciting. Soodeh, what do you see? What are you excited about?
Well, I won't say I'm excited about, but I will see this is coming for machine learning and AI applications in market. I see we are very serious on data privacy, and that is the lesson learned. And I see because data is the fuel of all of our models that we are building. And as Europe is so serious about the data privacy, we cannot just say this is Europe. And by the way, that I mean, if any of you don't know about GDPR, please go and study GDPR, because that's very important for your overall knowledge of building something in the future. To me, the data privacy regulations are coming to all the regions, all countries, in Canada, getting stronger, in the US as well. So by that, especially if you're working on models, for example, computer vision models that touch biometric information, those are very sensitive. And you need to start thinking of how you can retrain your models, how you can keep them with the data at customer sites day by day, while respecting the data privacy. This is a very strong and new, actually, like I would say, it can be a barrier for small companies. And I see that Google is very active in the area of federated learning, kind of actually invest in finding ways of training their models, like the Gboard that we are using actually is using the federated learning. And right now, as a small company, this is one of my challenges as well. I'm right now thinking of, okay, how I can deal with this data privacy. We have the cameras at the customer site. We have our models that are in the edge device there, analyzing the video stream at real time. And if I want to retrain our models and make them more accurate, I cannot bring the data to the cloud and retrain them. So I need to find a way that how I can leverage the data at real time, do something with them, maybe build customized models that are at that site, and then when it comes to aggregated and anonymous data, that it's fine and I can transfer. All of these aspects are now the innovation of our technology, our company. It's very focused on the real application, real challenges. It's not just accuracy of the data and we just kind of blindly go and don't think about the privacy. So I definitely see data privacy. And maybe if I have just one small point to make, we are in a pandemic. And this is a reality. We need to face it, and we need to think about what are the aspects that is actually our business are influenced by. For example, we used to do the demographic analysis. We do it based on the face. Right now, people are wearing face masks. And this is not right now for this pandemic. This is a new norm. This is going to be whoever has a flu gonna wear the face mask. Now I'm starting and thinking as a CTO of the company, well, how we should build the models that can maybe predict the gender while there is a face mask. Maybe I should use other aspect of the body. So these two, I think these are the very important things that I see as the challenges for AI applications in practice. I'm not excited about either of them, but I think that's the reality.
That is maybe that's definitely something we have to think about. It's we have to rethink facial recognition, which is maybe just half of your nose and your eyes up. So for the new norm, I have to retrain a bunch of models with that. There's maybe just before we get to Behnaz, because there's a question that came in that is quite pertinent to Soodeh, which is how to transfer an AI idea to a viable business product. I think you covered some of that in your talk before, in terms of not falling too in love with the actual technology and making sure that it will deliver value. But you have maybe one piece of advice in terms of how to do that successfully?
Sure. I would say you need to start from the other way around. You need to find a problem, and then you build a model that solves that problem. If you find a technology and want it force it to solve the solution, that is what we built and we couldn't sell. So it might be you're a researcher, you're working in an area that is great because you have the domain knowledge. So domain knowledge is so important. Gain that domain knowledge, understand how the models are working in your area, data, and all of the things, and then find the problem. If you want to build a product, if you want to build a startup, find a real problem that people are willing to pay, means that they are return of investment for them, and then build the model based on your knowledge, not the other way around.
So it pretty much applies to any type of entrepreneurial venture or any type of technology, just, make sure you're finding a need that you're trying to solve. Behnaz, a couple wanted to just go back before we ask you about what you're excited about the future. Just wanted to, on our last talk, I think some people are interested to know, once you maybe do have a need, even as a business owner, you have a need. How do I make the decision whether I should build up my own data science team or try and maybe transform some of my IT people into data scientists and build this in-house versus hiring an Evado Labs to do it for me? What are the things I should be thinking about?
Yeah, that's a very good one. And sometimes some clients who do want to use us, they ask us again, just prove that, why would I need you? And sometimes the answer is maybe you don't. And we're not shy about that. That's a good question. It's a make-buy decision. You need to have a business case for any of such, I would say, high CapEx projects, and that's not any different. I would say in terms of technology needs, by the way, these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Like, is it in-house? Do I make it? Do I buy it? Because you can have a hybrid strategy. At the beginning, you buy it, partner up, transfer knowledge, learn, and then build it afterwards. So you can have a spectrum out of those. But the way I look at it is that no matter what, when you have a business need, again, it's not about the technology like Soodeh was going. If you're on the buyer side of the house, I have a need. So how do I solve it? Well, these days, oftentimes the answer is some sort of technology because you want it to be efficient and repeatable and scalable, right? Then you need technology. So for the technology, there's always, you can go off the shelf. You can get products SaaS or non-SaaS, but the existing products versus tailor-made. And obviously there's cost and timeline implications. So you have to live with the fact that a already made product is not 100% what you want, but potentially cheaper. And then the other way around is going to suit your need, but you have to wait longer. You have to bear the risk, and you have to pay more. So that's a little bit of the first layer of decision making. Did I do my research? Can I find something? We don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't want, sometimes we're called to some clients and we tell them, listen, I guess you're better off. It's not 100% what you want, but you're better off with something that exists, because we are not interested to be in that business either, to create something. And potentially we're not going to be as good at that probably in the shorter time we have. So let's say if the answer is yes, for XYZ reason, whatever the business case says, it makes sense for you to go and find a partner to do tailor-made, basically to go tailor-made. Then that's a question of who should I partner with, because it depends on where you want to go. If you want to stay that way, what's your talent strategy? So you might find different types of partners depending on your end state. So if you want to say, you know what, this is not core to our business, we do X or we produce widgets, we are never going to be an AI shop. So who cares? We'd rather just, focus our people not to derail from who we are, and it's okay, and we pay and we partner and pay for the maintenance long term and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. But if your strategy at some point, and a lot of big corporations have this hyper strategy, they want to build your center of excellence in the long run. Most of them want, we can agree or disagree with it, but a lot of them, that's a fact. They want to have that competency in-house. Then you might need a different type of partner, which are also strong in knowledge transfer, in hand holding, and training your own internal task force. Again, that's good, but sometimes even that could be tricky, because it depends on your needs. Because you can never, a provider, a consulting company who provides the AI service, they have all sorts of data scientists for every single technique that you've read on books. They have a postdoc or a PhD or somebody who has done that. No company just doesn't make sense to have that. So it depends on what is the host of, techniques and talents you need. It doesn't even make sense to have all of them in house. So it's all about the business case.
Yeah, I guess
and your vision, where you want to go with it.
To Behnaz, just would love to hear what we were talking about before. If you had to talk about maybe what you're excited about, what you think is coming around the corner in the very near future, what would you like to share with us?
So I don't know what's coming around, but I know what I would like to come. So I have a wish list. Like, it's a personal, I would say, what I would love to it's classic democratize AI, but I would love to be able to do what I do for big companies, for smaller companies. And I know that's a big part of economy Canada, especially Quebec. 80+ % is PMO and even smaller. So that's my wish list. That's something that no one has cracked the code on yet, because these projects are expensive. It's hard. And just for the sheer reason that the task force is very scarce and expensive. And hence the cost of the projects are tied to that. So being able to do what we do for bigger corporations, for smaller corporations, there's a cost component. It's tough. Sometimes the vision is not there from their top leadership, and sometimes it's just the good old data. They need, like Bahar was saying, like crawl, walk, and run. Like they need digitization strategy. They need to just clean up the house first, automate processes, and then accumulate data that's consistent and it's scalable. So they need that first. So my wish list is that we pass over that digitization phase, and then we come to a world where we can provide service into a broader type of companies.
Okay, yeah, that's so that everybody can take advantage. So it's not cost prohibitive to or data prohibitive to
or maturity prohibitive in the overall.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, that's exciting. So we're hoping for ways to deal with data privacy that we're all comfortable with. We're looking for more intelligent automation so that we can have not only more efficiency, but also maybe get rid of some of the repeatable, boring tasks that people can have more interesting work. And we're excited to democratize the access to this. Well, this is great. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of you have more questions for our panelists, and this will continue with the sessions. So I will pass this back over to our overall moderator so that she can let you know where you're supposed to go next.
Thank you, Naomi, for being a great moderator, and Bahar, Soodeh, and Behnaz for the great insight that you just provided to everybody. So just to kind of close off the panel today. Basically, what we're going to do next is go into sessions. So what that means is each of our panelists will have a separate session that you can go to now and directly ask them, questions and discuss. And so it's a great opportunity to network with each of them. There'll also be an opportunity to network as a group. So you have that option. In terms of Women of MENA in Technology, so if you'd like or interested in more events like the one we've had today, we do organize these about quarterly. And so as I was saying, today is our last event of 2020, but we will be announcing one for 2021 shortly. And obviously for the moment, a virtual format. But we hope to see that change in the coming year. In terms of our team in Montreal, so one thing that is going on now is that we are looking at onboarding some new team members. So if anybody in the audience is also interested in being a part of our team, we'd love to hear from you. So I will add to the event chat section our email address, and so you can directly send us an email. Please include a little bit on yourself, why you're interested in joining, and your LinkedIn profile, and we'll be in touch. We're talking to a few people right now, but opening it up to the community as well. And so that's it. And so thank you again, everybody. And looking forward to continuing the conversation in the session. So we'll all basically close the stage and head over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.